In order to realize something in this world, to make it a reality, you have to first be able to even imagine it as possible. So when we say, for example, that Muslims and Jews have always been in conflict and will always be in conflict until the very end of time, we create our own artificial boundaries for what's possible. Oftentimes, history is the cure to our limited imaginations. Remember, you live in a particular moment in time, a time in which things are that have not always been. So let me explain. Jews and Muslims, conflict inevitable, right? Well, no. In fact, for much of history, Jews were treated better in many Muslim lands than Christian ones. But we don't see conflict between Christian and Jew as an inevitability, right? So check this out. In 1492, Spain issued the Alhambra Decree, expelling all Jews from Spain. And do you know who sent his empire's navy to Spanish ports to welcome and transport these Jews to his own lands? Ottoman Sultan Bayezid II, who subsequently said of Spain's king, "He has impoverished his own country and enriched mine." The Sultan even threatened his subjects with death if they refused Jews admission into his empire and or treated them harshly. That doesn't fit the narrative that we're sold of inevitable enmity, right? Or how about this? You've probably heard people say that Islam is just incompatible with Western values. Yet in 1958, Egypt's then president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, openly mocked the Muslim Brotherhood's calls for laws mandating hijab use. Before the Islamic Revolution in Iran, women wore miniskirts, not burqas. These societies were changed actually in part due to our own nation's politics. We overthrew Iran's democracy in 1953. Why? To protect oil interests. The unpopularity of the Shah, who we imposed on the Iranian people, the economic conditions that were created in part by the West's exploitation of Iran's oil resources, and the authoritarianism of the Shah's regime in part laid the groundwork and created the opportunity that Ayatollah Khomeini would take advantage of to bring about the Islamic Revolution. We funded the rise of the Wahhabist sect of Islam in the 20th century, including providing $50 million to put curriculum in children's schools in Afghanistan that said R is for rifle and J is for jihad. Why? Because the British first saw the Wahhabist Arabs as allies against the secular Ottomans in the early 20th century, and then later, us Americans saw the Wahhabists as allies against the godless Soviets. You see, the conflicts of culture, religion, and societies of our time are a product of ours and others' forebears' decisions, but they aren't an inevitable destination of our differences. But before we can realize a peaceful coexistence, we have to know that it's possible. So beware those who tell you that conflict with the other is an inevitability, and look to the bright spots of history for what we can aim towards.